Welcome back to my series on chess opening theory. In this video, I'm going to be looking at the A4 variation in the mainline Winawer in the French defense. So the French defense is when we have the moves E4, E6, D4, D5. And the Winawer occurs after the moves knight c3, bishop to b4, and the mainline Winawer continues e5, c5, a3, bishop takes c3 check, b takes c3, knight e7, and then in this position there are a number of moves that white can play. We have previously looked a bit at queen to g4 and knight to f3 as well as pawn to h4, so that just leaves one more move, which is the move in this game today, pawn to a4. So the move pawn to a4 has a number of ideas. One is to just take away the a4 square away from, any of black's pieces might want to make use of it. Another is to free up the a3 square potentially for this bishop to try to get into the game this way. You try to get active along this diagonal. And it also, secures the b5 square. It also takes this square away from black. At the moment, there aren't that many games that feature the a4 line. It's still fairly new. There's still a lot of unexplored territory. So the move that I like to play is just the move queen to a5, basically stopping any bishop a3 ideas by putting pressure along this diagonal and upon this pawn in particular. So as a result, white will generally play bishop d2 to defend this pawn. Like if white tries doing something else, like bishop to b2 or defending with the queen, for example, then black can just play like knight bc6 and just keep applying pressure on the center. Like this is just a pretty pleasant position for black. Like this bishop looks very silly over here if white wants to go for this approach. So that's why white will generally play bishop to d2 instead. And let's see. Now black will generally still continue with this approach, with developing. And in this position, it looks like, oh, maybe white could play c4 with, a discovered attack on the queen. But this is actually just a terrible idea. The queen would just come back to c7, and black would just have a lot of pressure upon white's center. Black has a nice lead in development, some active pieces. Black is ready to go kingside, whereas white's king is still pretty far away from being able to castle kingside and probably does not want to go queenside. So this would just be a very nice position for black. c4 would be very premature. So as a result, knight f3 is a much better move. And then black can often just develop with bishop to d7. Like black doesn't have to rush castling kingside. There's no hurry. Black can just, get more information about white's setup. White will often play bishop to b5, just developing the bishop and being a bit annoying along this diagonal. And then black will often just kick the bishop away. Okay, so in this position, white often will either retreat the bishop or take on c6. In the game we're looking at today, white took on c6, but retreating the bishop is also kind of interesting. There are not many games that feature this line. Black can play f6 to chip away at the center to apply a bit more pressure. And white often plays c4 here now, since white has gotten their pieces out. White is no longer, behind in development. Black can play queen c7, and this would just be a different game. This would still be an interesting position, but a lot of unexplored territory. There are only like 14 games in the Elite Chess Masters database that feature this line. Whereas with bishop takes c6, there's something like 19 games that feature black taking back with the bishop. Taking back with the knight is also okay. Taking back with the pawn, though, is not so good because then the light square bishop is just very sad on d7. He can't get out, and he can't do anything. And then here, white will often castle, and then black will often castle. And if you've made it this far, you're doing very well. Like, this is just a fine position for both sides. Like, I would say that in this line, at the moment, black is probably just equalized. Black is probably okay. But there are, this is still a fairly new line. There are some potential advancements that could be made in its theory, some potential new ideas that maybe white will find. And before continuing further, I think I should introduce the players. So with the white pieces, we have Mihaela Sandu, who is a women grandmaster from Romania. And she has, in the past, done very well at the World Youth. And she has also done quite well in the Women's League. I think she won a... let's see. I'm trying to remember the name of that tournament. I need to go and check my notes. What was the name of it? There was a unique tournament in 2003 called the Roses Cup Women, and she won that. And she's also come second and third in the Romanian Women's Chess Championships in 2014 and 2013, respectively. And she's also represented Romania in team events in the Women's Chess Olympiad as well as the European Team Chess Championships. And with the black pieces, we have Grandmaster Abdulla Gadimbayli. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. At the time that this game was played, he was not actually a Grandmaster. I think he was an IM in 2018, as he actually became a Grandmaster this year. He is from Azerbaijan, and he won the Azerbaijani Chess Championship in 2018, so the year that this game was played. And he's also done well at the European Youth Chess Championships and the World Youth. And in 2022, he won the World Junior Chess Championship, and he became a Grandmaster. Like there are some tournaments out there where if you win them, it's so prestigious that you just get the title automatically. You don't need norms, you don't need anything else. It's like, if you win this title, you're a Grandmaster. Sorry, if you win this tournament, you're a Grandmaster. No questions asked. And anyway, this particular game, it took place at the European Individual Chess Championship in 2018. And more information about the players and the event can be found in the video description. So now, back to the game. So this is the position we were at. And so, oops, sorry about that. So the game continued with the move rook to e1. And, just developing the rook, putting it on a decent file in the center. That continued with rook fc8. I kind of like this rook a bit better, since the c file is very likely going to be opening up soon if black ever takes like this. And white now went for knight g5, getting a bit aggressive, trying to maybe make some action happen with a kingside attack, that kind of thing. And black looks at this move and is like, well, this is okay. I kind of just want to put my pawn on h6 anyway, since I do kind of want to just take away this this square from your pieces in general, since it could be pretty annoying. Knight g5 is a move that the engine doesn't like very much. The engine prefers the move pawn to h4, but best move for black is still to just play pawn to h6. And another interesting move that white could play is the move bishop to g5, but black can just defend the knight with rook to c7, maybe rotate the knight to c8 in the future, or maybe just put it on f5, even though that would walk into pawn to g4. That's something to watch for. But what's interesting is the engine actually likes the idea of white trading the bishop for this knight. I guess part of the idea is just that it might kind of discoordinate black's rook a little, and the the position is actually quite closed, so the knight might actually be better than the bishop. You know, that kind of stuff. But that's not what happened in the game. So we have knight g5, pawn to h6, knight to h3. White is probably trying to push this pawn because that's why the knight would not go back to f3. Also, leaving this diagonal open for the queen can be helpful as well. The knight can also jump to f4 itself if desired. So normally you shouldn't put your knight on the edge of the board, but if the knight is only going to be staying there temporarily, or if there are other reasons to put it there, like helping your other pieces move, then it can be justified. We have bishop to e8, knight to f4, queen to c7. There are multiple ideas behind this move. Part of it is to get the queen off of this diagonal over here. But more importantly, just opening up this file and maybe taking the pawn on c2 is nice as well. We have knight to h5. Black starts this plan of just taking the pawn and going after the one on c2. And white now tries a little interesting sacrifice with knight to f6 check. White is going for the attack. Black should take this knight because just letting it sit here could be very dangerous. Like playing a move like king to f8, for example, could be quite... well, I should just take a look at that with an engine, for example. Like king to f8, just bring the queen in and get ready to maybe sacrifice the bishop on h6, you know, stuff like that. And this is actually very pleasant for white. Like this knight is very strong on f6. So as a result, there is no good reason to not take the knight. And that's what black did. Black took the knight. White took back with their pawn. This pawn is very strong on f6. Black puts their knight on g6 because black sees that white is going to be attacking them on the king side. White continued with queen to f3. The engine doesn't like this so much. The engine instead prefers pawn to h4 with maybe some ideas of playing h5, although this itself doesn't really work so well either. We'd have d takes c3, bishop takes h6, queen to c4, but this is not what happened in the game. And in my opinion, these kinds of inaccuracies here they don't matter as much. It's kind of more important that your moves be harder for a human to refute than for an engine to refute. It's like basically there isn't much difference between minus 1.5 and minus 2. Like they're both pretty nasty evaluations in terms of whether you're winning or losing. So it's better to just try being a little tricky, try to confuse your opponent a bit, try to have them go wrong. So we have queen to f3, pawn takes c3, just grabbing another pawn, hitting this bishop. And then we have queen to h5. White is going for some potential ideas with, like basically if black foolishly takes this, then there isn't really any nice way to stop mate. Like, the way to stop mate is to sack the queen, but that only delays it. So that's why that didn't happen. Although, I personally don't like the fact that, you know, the queen went to f3 before going to h5. I kind of feel that it should have just gone to h5 in one go. That seems kind of like a waste of tempo in my opinion, but anyway. Okay, so white's idea is to take over here and deliver checkmate. If you want, you can pause the video and just try to find a creative approach that black can use to defend themselves. Like, there are multiple approaches to consider, but I like what black played in the game. So I will reveal their move in 3, 2, 1. So what happened in the game was black played the move queen to d8, and I quite like this idea. Basically, black made a very clever observation, which is that this pawn over here can't actually be defended by anything, because this square is covered by the pawn on h6. This square is covered by the knight. Right? And Well, actually, it could be defended by the queen going back to f3, but that would then drop this bishop. So, well, basically, this is a nice way of, getting rid of this annoying pawn, because this pawn is one of white's best assets in terms of their attack. So as a result, we have bishop takes h6. White doesn't want to sacrifice another piece. Black takes the pawn. We have bishop to g5, queen to h8. Black will be quite happy to trade queens. We have queen to f3, rook to c4. Black is kind of going for some active defense, just trying to bring more pieces to the defense of this king. Basically, if Black is able to get all of their defenses together, Black is just going to win very easily. We have rook a d1, bishop takes a4, grabbing another pawn, and potentially freeing up the f8 square for this rook, as this pawn looks a little bit suspicious. It looks a little bit vulnerable. Bishop to f6, queen to h6. I'm saying stuff too quickly. Bishop takes c3. Maybe trying to go for some queen and bishop battery along this diagonal, stuff like that. Just putting this bishop on a very nice strong diagonal. Black goes for queen to f4. Again, defending very actively, putting their queen on an active square. Trying to force white's queen to move to a worse square, stuff like that. We have queen to d3. The white sees some potential ideas. Black brings their last piece into the game, going after this bishop over here. We have rook takes e6. A very cool little idea here. And if you want, you can pause the video and try to see if you can find what Black did next. There are potentially multiple good moves here, but I quite like what Black acted. Just very simple, very straightforward. I will reveal the move in 3, 2, 1. So the final move of the game was just a very simple, very quiet move. Just the move queen to g4. You probably notice that taking this rook is a very bad idea, because then white can take like this, and there's probably even checkmate, maybe a forced checkmate or something. I don't know, or at least a perpetual of some sort. Let's see, what does the engine say? Probably king f8. Okay, this is actually okay. It just looks really scary. It's all check here, and then maybe here. Okay, so this is playable. It just looks scary. I think this gives white too much hope, in my opinion. White would just move their bishop somewhere and keep trying to attack, stuff like that. So that's kind of interesting. There is no forced mate. But I still quite like this idea of just queen to g4, just being like, no, I'm not going to give you any hope. I'm just going to take all your pieces and stuff. Basically, in this position here, white now resigned because both the rook and the bishop are under attack. There is no way to save both of them. And black's pieces are just very nice and active. And it's very hard for white to find a good place for their pieces. Black is just going to take everything and trade everything and just win the end game. So I really like queen to g4. It just keeps things very nice and simple. Let's see. I think there was an alternative move that was also okay. I think rook takes bishop was fine as well, just getting rid of pieces. Let's just double check that. Yeah, rook takes bishop is totally fine. It looks a little scary. It looks like white could maybe try this, but black could still just take, and then there is no perpetual anywhere. Everything's really well covered. This queen does a great job just covering this square and this square. So black could have gone for this as well. This is kind of an alternative solution, and the engine considers this to be more winning, but I actually just prefer, I really like this queen g4 idea. Basically, White just immediately resigned here because there is no hope. Like, White's attack just will not be allowed to get going, and Black is just going to win even more material and just have too many pieces. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I think I'm done with the mainline Winawer stuff for now. I think I will cover some Winawer sidelines. And yeah, until next time, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye for now.